Mark Carney was appointed Prime Minister 147 days ago. It was a gross inside job. He didn't have a seat as an MP. No one in Canada knew who he was. He hadn't lived in Canada for over a decade. He had 3 passports. He hadn't filed his taxes here in Canada, as far as we know, in years. Gross, gross, gross. I suppose it was democratically validated retroactively when he won his election with a minority, but a win nonetheless, and that was 102 days ago. But really, it's been almost half a year since Carney took over, and of course, much of his inner circle is from Justin Trudeau's inner circle, so it's not like, say, when Donald Trump took over from Joe Biden and there was a total need to clean house of political appointees. I mean, half the cabinet is still the same as it was before. So here's the obvious question. What exactly has Mark Carney done in 147 days? Part of the answer might be, well, he was campaigning in an election for 30 or 40 those days. Okay, fine. So tell me what he's done with the 100 days since he was elected, since he actually won the election. 100 days, what has he done? Compare that with the incredible burst of energy and activity with which Donald Trump launched his presidency in his first day, no, his first hours. He signed a series of hugely important executive orders. Here is the Federal Register of the United States. It's the official list. It's in reverse order, so I want to start at the bottom and scroll up. 182 executive orders. Look at how momentous each of them is. I'm just going to name some of them. Restoring freedom of speech and ending federal censorship. Ending radical and wasteful government DEI programs and preferencing. That's affirmative action. Unleashing American energy. Wouldn't you love to have that in Canada? Withdrawing the United States from the World Health Organization. That's momentous. Designating cartels and other organizations as foreign terrorist organizations and specially designated global terrorists. That's to deal with the drug cartels in Mexico. Establishing and implementing the president's Department of Government Efficiency. That's the DOGE thing that Elon Musk led for a while. Putting America first in international environmental agreements. Wouldn't that be nice if we could do that? Defending women from gender ideology extremism and restoring biological truth to the federal government. That was about trans in sports. Reevaluating and realigning United States foreign aid. Oh, I'm so jealous, aren't you? And I'm going to stop there. But by the way, did you notice that list I just read out, I don't know if you saw on the screen, every single one of those was signed literally on the first day of his presidency, January 20th. Each one of which was momentous. Of course, that's just what he's done himself, 182 of these, but he's worked with Congress, including with the Democrats. He's worked with other countries. He's brought in a massive law that he calls the Big Beautiful Bill. That's a form of a budget. It's an immigration enforcement law. And by the way, along with doing all that, he's negotiating a trade deal almost every other day. He's brokering peace between Russia and Ukraine. I hear that he has a meeting with Putin next week, according to the New York Times. He has other peace deals that don't seem as large, including in Africa. And shortly, I think he's going to do the Middle East again, another Abraham Accords. He just managed, just one thing he did. He managed to pressure Apple to invest $100 billion more in America to make the iPhone there. This guy is busy. He's living like it's his last moment. And in a way it is. When he's done this term, he's done. I should tell you, it would take a full hour just to list what he has done since he became president 200 days ago, to be precise. So what has Mark Carney done? 147 days since he was PM. 102 days since he was elected in the general election. Can you name one thing? Just tell me one law he's passed, one foreign treaty, one important policy decision, one trade deal. Just give me one in 147 days. How many projects of national importance has he commissioned? He said it would be a priority given the trade war with America. He said we should become our own best client. Okay, good idea. We still import an enormous amount of oil every day, including from America. Isn't that weird? So where's the oil pipeline? He said it was time for a Team Canada approach on things like pipelines and big industrial projects. Show me one. one that has been approved, let alone started. Show me the internal free trade amongst provinces. Show me. Show me a trade deal anywhere other than the absurd idea that we would join the European Union as some sort of substitute for being able to get a deal with the United States. Carney loves Europe. I'm sure he does. He has 2 European passports. He has a house in London, but that's just not how it works. You can't just say, oh, we're going to forget about the world's largest market right next to us. Here's a story today. Canadian steel has no practical foreign markets beyond the United States, says Algoma CEO. But remember, Mark Carney told us who really needs steel anyways, not us.
Then secondly, what we're going to do is make sure not that the government pays, not that we as taxpayers pay, but the large polluters pay. And so what happens...
But does that not ultimately trickle down?
No, because what the big companies are producing, by and large, are not products that we are consuming. There's some element of that, but by and large, a steel company, how much steel are you using these days, Todd? I mean, not as much we used. So anyway, so that's core.
I guess no one needs wood either, even though Canada has probably more than any other country in the world, with maybe the exception of Russia. Let me read this story. Tariffs force shutdown. Layoffs at New Brunswick plant trigger Holt Relief Fund. Arbeck Forest Products to shut down Miramichi plant for 6 weeks, affecting 113 employees, permanently eliminating 29 jobs. And that's just one small story in one small newspaper in one town. I don't know if you saw the other day, but Trump is not even picking up the phone for Canadians. I don't think he's talked to Carney in weeks. They're just not even bothering talking to Canada. Do you see this embarrassing clip?
Well, we're going to see. No, I didn't like what they said, but that's their opinion. I didn't like that. Not a deal breaker, but we haven't spoken to Canada today. He's called, and we'll see.
I remember that Canada and the U.S. were in pretty heavy-duty negotiations a few weeks ago, and then Mark Carney decided that was the time to announce a massive retroactive tax on U.S. social media platforms operating in Canada. Trump was ambushed by it. It was so weird, the timing of it, and Trump cut off negotiations. Remember that?
August 1st is going to come, and we will have most of our deals finished, if not all. We haven't really had a lot of luck with Canada. I think Canada could be one where they'll just pay tariffs, not really a negotiation. We're working very diligently with Europe, the EU, which covers a lot of territory, a lot of countries, and that's the big one right now. We have the confines of a deal with China. Well, we haven't really. We don't have a deal with Canada. We haven't been focused on it. When the letters go out, they're a page and a half. That means they have a deal. It's done. They pay that tariff, and that is a contract essentially. And they can come into the country. They're going to pay a tariff. I'm going to keep it minimal. I'm going to keep it. I'm not looking to hurt countries. I could do that too, but I'm not looking to do that.
And then Carney decided to do a little bit of freestyle diplomacy in the Middle East. We have no skin in the game. We have no military that can, project force over there. We have no diplomatic or commercial sway. Nobody cares what we say over there except Hamas, which loves any Western power supporting them. And indeed, that's what Carney did. He announced his support for Hamas by saying he will recognize Palestine as a country next month.
For the reasons I cited earlier, Canada intends to recognize the state of Palestine at the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly in September 2025. This intention is predicated on the Palestinian Authority's commitment to much-needed reforms, including commitments by the Palestinian Authority's President Abbas to fundamentally reform its governance, to hold general elections in 2026 in which Hamas can play no part, and to demilitarize the Palestinian state. Canada will increase its efforts in supporting strong democratic governance in Palestine and the contributions of its people to a more peaceful and hopeful future. I spoke today with President Abbas at length to reaffirm his commitment. Canada reiterates that Hamas must immediately release all hostages taken in the horrific terrorist attack of October 7th, that Hamas must disarm, and that Hamas must play no role in the future governance of Palestine. Canada will always steadfastly support Israel's existence as an independent state in the Middle East, living in peace and security. Any path to lasting peace for Israel also requires a viable and stable Palestinian state, and one that recognizes Israel's inalienable right to security and peace.
Oh, so Donald Trump is trying to pressure Hamas into releasing the hostages and laying down arms. Trump is working with Lebanon at the same time to get rid of Hezbollah. He's working with the Saudis and half a dozen others, including Egypt and Syria. You can imagine how complex it is, and only America has the ability to do that, no one else. And Carney just comes out and without consultation, without notice, just gives a gift, a reward to Hamas. At the same time as France's Emmanuel Macron and UK's Keir Starmer do, they have no skin in the game either. No one cares what they say. They're really just doing it for domestic purposes, which is what Mark Carney's doing. But it gives Hamas a huge diplomatic win. And it was that next day that Hamas decided they didn't have to do anything at all. They were going to stop their negotiations completely. They were getting their victories diplomatically. Carney was just looking to distract Canadians from his failures and to pander to the growing Islamist vote in Canada. But Trump was ambushed yet again. So yeah, are you surprised that Trump has slapped a 35% tariff on Canada and is making Canada wait to re-engage? And can you blame him? I mean, there are only 24 hours in a day, and Trump doesn't seem to take a lot of vacations. By the way, like I say, today is Trump's 200th day in office, and look at all the things he's doing. Like this very week, he's trying to resolve Ukraine-Russia, something I believe he can do, something that genuinely would improve the world, that should earn a Nobel Peace Prize, but it won't, since that's decided by left-wing Nordic politicians who hate Trump. Who cares about them? Imagine ending a war in Europe, saving hundreds of thousands of lives on both sides. And imagine if Trump can also get the Abraham Accords round 2 done. So yeah, why on earth would Trump, who is living like he's got just hours to get his life's work done, he's not wasting a minute, why would he engage with Carney's negotiators again? Is it that important to him? Does he care about Canada that much? Enough to let Carney embarrass him and ambush him again and again? Or this diplomatic genius, Doug Ford?
What's the general impression of Trump in Canada?
He's probably the most disliked politician in the world in Canada because he's attacked his closest family member, and that's the way we look upon it. And when I talk to the governors and senators and Congress people, even Republicans totally disagree, but they're too scared to come out and say anything because the president will go after them. Outside of a few senators, and I want to thank them for coming out and standing with not just American people, but their closest friends and allies, which is Canada. And again, we love the Americans. It's unfortunate President Trump decided to go down this road.
You know, I try to ignore Doug Ford most of the time. He's awful. I'm embarrassed for him as a conservative, but I know the NDP and the Liberals are worse. But actually here, I don't think they would be worse. This is just weird spite and a total lack of emotional control. Whose interests is Doug Ford serving here, and how? How does insulting Trump help anyone? Is that going to make Trump pick up the phone to Carney faster? Does insulting Trump typically get him to give you what you want? You know, this reminds me of how Doug Ford continuously condemned and insulted Pierre Poilievre in the last federal election. Now, I don't actually think any real conservatives would change their vote because of what Doug Ford said. I don't think they respect him that much. And I don't think any liberal would change their vote based on Doug Ford either. But it showed how Ford puts his petty personal vendettas and insults above the public interest. What a loser. But back to Mark Carney. It's just weird. I mean, America is more important to Canada's economy than the rest of the world combined. Carney's trying all these weird things, like talking about China and giving a ferry deal to China. And I don't understand his Mexican gambit, as if a Canada-Mexico trade deal would be important to either country. Canada-Mexico trade is about $50 billion a year, which is not nothing. I mean, that's something, of course, but Canada-US trade is $1.3 trillion. It is 25 times more. What a joke. But look at these headlines anyways. I mean, okay, maybe it could work. Really? Look at this. Canada courts Mexico as Trump escalates tariff fight. Canadian ministers push energy ties with Mexico ahead of thorny USMCA review. Okay. And here's Mexico's response. Mexico's Sheinbaum, that's the president, says, no need for a bilateral trade deal with Canada. I say again, what has Carney done in 102 days or 147 days, whenever you want to start measuring? He's done nothing of importance internally. No laws passed, no important policies announced, nothing about expanding our markets as if that were possible without America, nothing about dealing with Trump, which was his essential campaign promise. Elbows up. What exactly did elbows up mean? To be a tough negotiator? I think that's what it meant. To be the guy who could handle Trump? We don't have a tough negotiator. We don't have a weak negotiator because we have no negotiator, because the Americans won't even meet with us or take our phone calls. Maybe because we announced an internet tax, maybe because Carney endorsed Palestine and Hamas, or maybe because Trump just really wants to do harm to us. I don't know. I hope not. Maybe Trump just wants to swallow up our steel industry and our car industry, and he doesn't mind having 35% tariffs in place. Maybe he prefers Carney because Carney is someone who is anti-American. So it makes it easier for him to be anti-Canadian, to take advantage of us, to move our core industries down to the U.S. I don't know if you've been watching these past 200 days, but Trump has had a parade of foreign leaders and foreign businessmen come to the White House to announce how many tens or hundreds of billions of dollars they are going to invest in America. Japan, Korea, Arabian countries. Here's just a sample.
But I just signed the largest trade deal in history. I think maybe the largest deal in history with Japan. And that was done with Japan. They had their top people here, and we worked on it long and hard, and it's a great deal for everybody. I always say it has to be great for everybody. It's a great deal. A lot different from the deals in the past, I can tell you that. But we're doing really well as a country. We're strong. We have a lot of money flowing in. The tariffs are kicked in better than anybody other than me and a few of the people in the room. Those things are $750 billion, $600 billion, opening up the country. We are agreeing that the tariff straight across for automobiles and everything else will be a straight across tariff of 15%. So we have a tariff of 15%. We have the opening up of all of the European countries, which I think I could say were essentially closed. I mean, you weren't exactly taking our autos, you weren't exactly taking our agriculture, and then you would have smaller things, but for the most part, it was closed. And now it's open. It's open for our companies to go in and do a good job with it. I think you'll like them. I think you'll like it. And we will, very importantly, they'll be investing a lot of money, but the military is a big number, but that's one number we're not determining. It's going to be whatever it is, but they're going to be purchasing hundreds of billions of dollars worth of military equipment. They're very important. They're going to purchase $750 billion worth of energy. So that's going to be great. And $600 billion worth of investments into the United States over and above what they have. So, and I think that basically concludes the deal. I mean, those are the main factors. I don't think there are too many other factors.
It is unthinkable that Carney would do that, or that any big Canadian companies would say that. I mean, I don't even know if it's possible. What big Canadian companies are left? The automakers in Canada are all branch plants: Ford, Chrysler, GM, Honda, Toyota. I don't even know what factories are left, but they're not Canadian car companies. They're Canadian subsidiaries of U.S. or global car companies. They're not actually Canadian. The steel companies, I guess, are Canadian, but you really couldn't imagine Canadians saying they're going to invest tens of billions in the U.S., although 1,000 smaller Canadian companies are just sort of doing it, just sort of moving there to be out of the tariffs. Oh, you might have heard one big company called Brookfield that moved from Canada to the U.S. That's the company that's Mark Carney used to lead. So yeah, can you tell me what Mark Carney has done, what he's achieved in 147 days as PM? No budget, no laws passed, no trade deal, just a pledge to support Hamas and Palestine. Hey, elbows up, everyone.